was 21 years old and lucky enough to have scored a gig as a backing singer for Savage Garden, who at the time were, you know, they went on to be one of the biggest things out of the Australian music industry. At the time when I joined them, they were just a couple of guys who had a single that was starting to chart, and they needed a band to do a couple of promotional dates around Australia. And they saw my cover band and asked myself and a couple of the other band members to audition, and I did, got offered the gig, which I nearly didn't take because I had a whole heap of other gigs booked, and that was my sole income at the time. So, but I did, thank God. And we started rehearsing in a garage in Acacia Ridge in Brisbane. 6 weeks later, we were on the roof of the CNN building in New York because they had a #1 single in the States. So it escalated rather quickly, which took a 21-year-old Jen who was, you know, I'd say confident, but not at all experienced, and definitely like, you know, crazy confident, on a trajectory that was slightly, let's face it, terrifying. It was pretty challenging at the time. This all culminated in an experience in New York. We were in New York. There was 2 backing singers actually when I joined, and I was the secondary one. So I didn't have to wear the brunt of like a lot of the feature stuff as a backing singer. But on this promotional tour in New York, there was an issue with the other backing singer, and she actually got sent home. She got fired. And it was like she had an argument with Darren, the lead singer, and she got sent home, which meant that I was it at that point. So this all happened the night before the next day, which was going to be a Sony music showcase for New York. And at the time, Sony was headed up by Tommy Mottola. So anyone of my era will remember Tommy Mottola was married to Mariah Carey, and he was like the biggest name in music basically at the time. Like he was literally the head of Sony Music. And he was going to be at this showcase. And this meant that I was having to take over the main backing vocals and actually a feature vocal in Truly Madly Deeply, which was the single that was about to come out in the States. It was expected to be the big hit, which it absolutely was. It absolutely creamed it. And at the time, Savage Garden was performing this like a duet. So Darren would sing a line and then the backing singer would sing a line. So it landed on me overnight that suddenly I was the person that was going to be doing the duet with Darren in front of Tommy Mottola. So we get to this showcase, and I am rightfully terrified at this point, completely overwhelmed and in absolute shutdown. And we start the showcase. It is terrifying. So it's in this tiny little theatre in New York. There's the band. There's about 10 people there, all sitting at the back with Tommy Mottola sitting front and centre by himself, arms crossed, baseball hat on. Like this wasn't a big venue. There was nowhere to hide. He's right there and he's looking at us, arms crossed. So I just shit myself. This is it. I'm done. My spirit left my body. I don't remember a lot of it. What I do remember is we started and I tanked. I absolutely muffed it, which was awful. It was awful. I remember getting off stage and Darren just turned to me going, what happened? I was like, literally nothing would come out. It was the first ever time I've been so nervous on stage that I just couldn't function, and I didn't cope. I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the experience. I just couldn't do it, which was, horrible. But I survived. And that experience was kind of like the bottom out for me. I think it was the first time where I went, wow, that was like literally worst case scenario that I could have ever imagined in my career. And it happened and I'm alive. I still had my gig, which was amazing and very gracious of them, because if that had been me, I would have been questioning continuing. But yeah, after that experience, it was like that thing of, wow, I just walked through the fire and it was okay. And so then fast forward, a few years after I left Savage Garden, I got my own record deal and went on to have like the most played song on radio in 2001. So one really big hit single. And at the time, we were doing the promotional stuff, and the biggest TV show that you could possibly get on at the time was The Panel. I don't know if you remember that back in the 2000s, but The Panel and Rove Live were the two big rating shows on Channel 10. And so we were lucky enough to snag the offer of doing you close out the panel with an acoustic performance like they did. And we got that gig as well as Rove. But again, second most terrifying moment, because that was an example of highest rating show on TV, nowhere to hide. It was acoustic and live to air. So really, really, really high stakes. If you stuffed that up, there was no fixing it. And I just remember being in the green room backstage, and I was chatting to Paul Walker from Fast and Furious, who was amazing, who was on it that night. Cool. Yeah. But it came time for our bit, and we walked into the elevator to go down from the green room down to the studio. And it was with myself and Grant, the other half of Aniki, with his acoustic guitar, and the A&R guy from our record label. And we're just all silent in the lift, because I was like fully focused, like, oh, we've got this, like, but terrified. And I just remember the A&R guy turning to me and going, "Don't fuck this up." Sound advice, mate. Thanks. Got it. But it was a case of where I'd learned in that time from that previous experience as well, that the fear is only going to make the worst case scenario come true. So sort of that experience had got me into a place where I was like, all right, yep, I'm scared, but let's focus and let's get this done. And yeah, after those two experiences, now for the rest of my life, even in the most challenging of circumstances, it's kind of that's really stuck with me. Like, I learned super quick from literally those. They just stand out in my life experience as two moments where I realized that you just have to focus, and the fear will manifest the outcome that you don't want, versus just working out where you want to go and going there. So yeah, survived both. We ended up being featured on the panel CD that they released, the recording of that exact live performance.
Yeah, right.
A panel CD, which was super cool. And yeah, it's on YouTube. You can watch the performance. You can see how I was, for the first half of the song, I am super focused and just getting it done. And then I realize I'm good at the second half, and it's like, yep. But, you know, my friends watch that and they're like, you don't look scared at all. I was like, whoa. So yeah, there's that muscle of really pushing myself and dealing with fear and putting it in the corner has kind of been the secret sauce.